It's button pushing time as soon as I launch slobs.
Alrighty. Try it on the set.
Quiet on the set. You're listening to WRFB Radio Free Britannia. Coming to you live from Deltona, Florida. Celebrating over 10 years plus. And still running. Who would have ever thought they would last this long? Lunch with no other than the dynamic duo themselves, Laz and Jack. Greetings, everybody. This is Les.
And this is Jack. Welcome to another exciting day here in Shroud of the Avatar and Lunch with Laz and Jack, where we interpret the Shroud of the Avatar news so you don't have to do anything other than question your own personal life choices and ours, because they deserve to be questioned.
Doesn't he sound excited, folks?
Well, I mean,
Excited.
I am so whelmed by our Shroud news that, yeah, another exciting day. But giveaways are open on both streams. That is twitch.tv/Cinesist and twitch.tv/NBNN News. For our streamer bundle, you do need to type in !bundle me on both streams. Do the bundle again, Dwip. And if you want to get in on the Steam Key giveaways on Laz's side, it's going to be ! I love free shit. On my side, it's going to be pound the booty.
Pounded.
Yes.
Pound it hard.
Yes. I could always change it to bang the bootay. But pound the bootay is
That was a
also
bang it
entertaining.
hard.
Yeah. I mean, it is Monday, and
And we'd have to make all sorts of noises.
yeah, and I'm over here doing silly work.
Gosh.
Yes, it is Monday, February 24th, 2025. Welcome to today's show, boys and girls. We are just a couple of days away from the next release 135.
I mean, a release.
Yes. I don't even want to
I
call it a QOL release.
it's. I'm going to guess that it's going to be filled with text updates where they fix typos.
You think?
And I mean, we don't have any thing on the forums related to testing directives, right?
Nothing really. Let's see. Developer tracker. Oh, well. Today's hot topic is actually the top of the developer tracker.
Which is?
Well, if you look at the developer tracker, you'll know.
Yeah. That is there. Yeah. Yeah, and let's just say, I mean, the developer tracker would be a great place to track Alley Oop working on the project as well. Because last time she did anything official was the release 134 notes. I mean, she obviously knows how to use that account.
Well, yes, she does use it from time to time. Like once a month, she uses the.
Yeah, when it should be like, here are all of my stuff as I'm performing this role for the port nip team. But yeah, fun stuff.
Fun stuff, but
yeah.
Hopefully, after today, I'm going to sit down today and do a little public announcement, press release for our upcoming anniversary next month. And I will
I'm throwing
tag her.
wrenches.
Yeah. I will tag Alley Oop to sort of prod her to make sure that it gets into the release notes, but there is no guarantee that it will. In the meantime, I do actually have some finished cloaks. Do we want to preview those right now, or we want to make everybody wait until?
Well, let's go ahead and make them wait.
Okay.
Make them wait, so that way it's a surprise.
So we did get some official answers on the actual elderberry bushes, though. And again, I knew I saw it someplace, but I couldn't go back, and for some reason, I don't know why, I couldn't find where I saw it again. But yes, the grow period is 7 days normal planting, which leaves the watering times to be incredibly long.
So 3.5 days in a grow house.
3.5 days in a grow house, and it's 28 hours in between waterings in a greenhouse. Okay, so we've
remember, you don't have to do those waterings.
Well, in order to hit where I want to be, I want to make sure that they get done. So I got to hit those waterings.
The waterings do not affect anything other than the quantity that is produced. And since the quantity produced is always one, so
Yeah.
watering will not change that 1 to 5.
Well, next planting, then I will leave one plant unattended while I leave all the rest of them attended, and we'll see what the difference is, if any, on that. But
And
right,
Yeah.
the watering
Right.
doesn't affect the length of time it takes for it to grow.
Nope.
yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That watering only affects the quantity
The
output.
quantity
You got a good
produced.
point
Yeah.
there. Yeah, got an interesting
We only
point
talked
there.
about that last week, but it may not have
don't-
clicked the way it was phrased.
Yeah, I don't remember that being something. Well,
we had so many
Knight Rider,
related conversations.
you have to water it first and second time to get it started.
No. Just the first time you have to start it
Well,
when you plant it.
again,
You don't have to go back and re-water it.
There's 2 waterings initially at planting.
Yes, but for the royal elderberry seed, since the produce for that is always 1, you don't have to do that second water bucket.
Well, I guess we'll test that
And-
next time around. Right now, they
Yeah,
are all currently
They're
watered.
still seeing, yeah.
Yeah, and they should be ready for their next watering about 6 o'clock this evening. So when I come back at 6 o'clock and look at them, I'll see if that's actually the case. And maybe at that point, I will just leave one as it is.
Because it will not change the production of the plant, because it only yields one fucking thing.
Come on, sit.
But yes.
Sit, Les, sit.
I still don't know why it takes so long to stand up.
Because your character's got a bad back.
Well,
it knows how old you
sometimes, like, in order to stand up, it requires like
well, if you hit your
2
W
inputs.
key, if you hit your W key, you get up immediately. If you're using your mouse, it takes a second.
Like, not every time. So that time it did not stand up. That time it stood up.
Yeah. But Deuce Blackheart's out there in the audience today. I got to say hello and welcome. And got to ask you, what is your forum name? Because I don't recall seeing your name in any of the stuff as Deuce Blackheart that we covered last week when you were talking about it in our Discord. But also, welcome to the Discord, and feel free to just join in the conversations there. There's always something interesting going on. And hopefully he's paying attention out there.
Yep.
So then what topic was it that we covered? Yeah, absolutely. Again, just to remind everybody, when we are doing this show, we welcome everybody to come on in to the Discord and chat with us and join in the conversation.
And join in voice chat if you feel
is.
so obliged. Yes. Hello, Deuce.
Hello, guys. By the way, it's Deus as in Deus Ex, because I really like that.
No, can't do that because that would be pronouncing something correctly.
Oh, of course, I do apologize.
Because then you'll be like, you are God Blackheart.
Well, I mean, I was more meaning it in the Latin term for the Deus Ex Mechanica, the Deus, the God in the Machine, because I was an edgy teenager and I have never changed. But thank you very much for joining me, for inviting me, and thank you very much for covering my work. It's actually been really gratifying because I'm just, even though I know that Shroud is a very niche game, it's very nice to see some very established streamers who have a very discerning community, and you stream more regular than I do these days, at least for Shroud. and it's very nice to see the work, especially the death stuff, which has been my forte since I found Corpse Explosion. I was like, this is simultaneously hilarious and ridiculous. So
Were you around for the Corpse Explosion bug when you would wipe out an entire scene with it?
No, I actually have only been playing. Okay. I've only been playing since. Hang on, I've done this before. I think I've only been playing now for 4 years this year.
Okay.
So I'm very much a new person, which is why, despite the fact that I have over 1,000 hours, I'm still a complete noob. I might have 267 grandmasters, but I'm still a complete noob. I haven't even specialized just into death. I have the only things I haven't fully leveled are bludgeoning and light armor, because I've always worn heavy armor.
Yeah, well, I mean that's kind of like the holdover. And thank you for those nice comments.
No,
absolutely. So yeah, this was the discussion, the death discussion. That was his topic, and we dedicated quite a bit of time to this one. But my question for you is, why have you decided to stick with death? Because I originally went that route years and years and years ago, and when they started screwing with the all the death magic, it just became to the point where I gave up and said, this isn't worth the time or effort. So what made you stick with that, if I may ask?
You're dead. You're dead.
Well, the thing is, first of all, I'm a big goth. I'm literally a 6'2" Scotsman who does pro wrestling. I'm a giant goth. I've got long hair and everything. But
I thought you were German.
No, I'm Scottish. I have Austrian ancestry, but I'm Scottish. But no, the important thing here is that I like death because it does something different. Because it does something. It's weird. It's got 2 summons, but they're kind of redundant. I mean, Chaos technically has 2 summons as well, but it's a lot more difficult to get into because of the requirement of obsidian chips for most of their stuff. From my perspective, death is there is nobody else out there. There's no other game out there that I see doing a necromancy style build in their MMOs that doesn't resolve in something pretty boring. I used to play Guild Wars 2. I played a lot of Guild Wars 2. And their necromancy stuff there was kind of interesting, but it always felt limited. And it was more like a condition mancy build where like you just apply a ton of debuffs, and then they changed that so that on bigger bosses that were immune to certain things, you would pop essentially and do a lot of damage, which I felt was kind of a lazy way to do it. And one of the things that I've been interested about with death was I like the idea of running around as like this melee folk. I mean, you've said it before on stream, on the rare times I've been able to see you, that everybody is a mage in Shroud the Avatar, and that's true.
Yeah,
unless you want to be one of those nutters that runs around and only does like, I don't know, melee and some kind of
only melee.
Yeah, which is fine.
Yeah.
I would say that from my perspective, the reason I've stuck with it throughout all of this is because I see the potential for it to do something better. In every game that I've played, or even the game I'm actually playing right now, every game that is long running, that is in a live service, which Shroud the Avatar has had reworks. And since I've started playing, there has been, for whatever reason, there has been 0 reworks. Now, this is referencing something you said on the Discord, which was about Hellgate London, which it was originally a game released in 2007 by Flagship Studios, developed by the people who developed Diablo 2, basically. They developed... it was limited. Basically, it was limited by...
I was talking about Diablo. Yeah, Diablo was a good game. Yeah.
Diablo 2 is a great game.
Yeah.
But essentially, even in the modding community for that, there have been more reworks in the time that it's been running compared to Shroud the Avatar, and it's what concerns me more than anything else. So my only worry was when I started picking up death was, this is clearly like 5 seconds away from getting a rework. It's still 5 seconds away from getting a rework as far as I'm concerned.
That is one where we have hammered on it repeatedly. And this goes back to like the ability of the organization for Portnip and to actually pay for development.
Yeah,
they have to be aware of their business plan, and so this will tie into part of the greater business plan, because you have to have developers that can focus on redoing all of the math related to combat, as well as flesh out the skill trees.
Absolutely. Could not agree with you more. Could not agree with you more.
And that is one where they have done their best to disenfranchise the large majority of the elder backers, the people that have been around here since founder days, all the way through people that supported telethons to modern to the most recent stuff. They started to acknowledge it with things like the Lord British battle axe, right?
Right.
But they have not turned around and continue to
also
finish resolving
getting
that
rid
issue.
of heritage items was an acknowledgement also.
Yes.
Of
Yes.
the business model. Now, if we could just follow through with that
Get
other
rid of the
store.
vault items.
Yeah, the vault
Yep,
items,
the
and get
vault
to
items.
a point where we're just releasing more and more items. But the thing we know,
as well as like anything that is a that was previously retired from the store. I mean, so that means that they also need to hire artists in order to create that digital pixel crack and incentivize people to spend money on Shroud, because you can't really do a whole hell of a lot on $9 a month unless you have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of players.
I fully agree. I mean, the thing is, the games that I'm more familiar with, because I have like 7,000 hours on like Warframe, Digital Extremes have been extremely efficient with that game. And when I say efficient, the good example I can give is that you can buy like Warframes, which is kind of like classes basically. But that doesn't mean you know how to use them. It doesn't give you the ability to mod them. Now, it's a very different game, so it's different monetization and all the rest of it. But they are very, very specific about mostly, and I mean almost exclusively, it's cosmetic only, which is one of the nice things about Shroud. But one of the problems from my perspective, and I've talked about this before, is that the game is trying to be everything and nothing at the same time, which is deeply difficult because it's a sandbox. So, Warframe I would say every 4 to 6 months has something that moves forward. And I know there's patches every month, but 9 times out of 10, those patches add new content for the store. And while I understand and appreciate that's their business model, it's very difficult to support a game when all you ever see is, oh, well, we added more things for you to buy. And it's like, And it worries me because they're spending their time and developer time, because this is the other thing as well that I've got specific experience with. I have worked alongside and in tandem with mod teams before. I'm actually a voice actor for the Dawn of War Unification mod, which is entirely free, and nobody's making money out of that because games.
I thought I recognized you.
Well, I'm over 27 roles and counting. I can't speak to what I'm doing there because I'm not technically under an NDA, but I respect the developers very heavily, so I need to shut my mouth on that one. But the important bit is that when you're developing content for when you have limited or essentially no budget, you have to be efficient with it, and spending time and money to develop spending time and money to build a new house makes sense. But why don't we have things like, say, I've literally been calling for, hey, could we get a chain axe skin? Right? I would actually pay money for that. I wouldn't even pay Dotos. I would buy real money for that, because I think that there's definitely much more of a market in smaller purchases, the microtransaction. And that's obviously this is the other thing as well. I've never worked in the industry. I'm not a programmer. I'm not a developer. I wish I was, because I'm telling you right now, I would work for free to get Shroud for where it needs to be, so that it doesn't need people to be working for free. That's my personal opinion on it. I think that Shroud has. I've even talked about this on stream. See, if you look on the Steam page, which I know like a lot of people who have been playing for a long time have a direct download. See if you go to it on Steam. In the first 6 sentences of its description, it mentions Lord British like 3 times. As long as I've been playing, he's had nothing to do with the game. And while I appreciate Legacy for legacy's sake doesn't bring new people in. Ultimate Online was what, 1999? That's 26 years ago now. You can't really You know, you can't really be playing off that legacy and expect to grow your game, because Ultima Online is now and I mean this in the most loving way possible. It is a relic of the age that it came from.
Well, we're gonna just hit the pause button right there because this weekend there was some posts out there on X, and the question was asked yet one more time. So let's just jump to that real quick, and we'll talk about that, and then we'll come back to the microtransactions because, yeah, as Tina says, we've been saying make microtransactions micro again, and
yes,
I've got an issue with that. But this weekend, there was a conversation going on in X where somebody asked Richard if he had actually lived in California. And he goes, only briefly. He was born in Cambridge, England, lived there for 1 year. Then his dad was professor. When his dad was professor at Stanford, he lived there for 4 years. Then moved to Houston, where he grew up, and lived in Texas all of his life. And then somebody on that chain asked, "Will there ever be another Ultima?" Although I'm not sure if you have anything to do with the IP anymore. One of my favorites of all time. And Richard's reply on the 23rd, which was just yesterday, was, "While I do not have the IP at the moment, I may have it back soon. Then yes, I think it's time." Which he's been alluding to for a little while, but let me jump to, and you can put up Agent Z's comment right below that as well.
I was going to say this before we get into Agent Z's comment, is that Richard has been trying to acquire that IP for Ultima since 1993.
Since he let it go. Yeah, since he let it go.
Yes. So, and he has always gotten close to acquiring the IP, but then it always falls through at the end. And you can't blame EA executives at this point for some instilled hatred related to what happened to EA Origin in the early 90s.
Yeah, I don't think anybody who was there back in the day is still there today. That's for sure.
Yeah, and so it's one where it's like, you know what? That's some IP that they're just going to hang on to indefinitely and maybe one day reboot themselves. But
well, they just did actually.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing, though. This is why I was saying, like, I appreciate Richard Garriott. The man obviously is a talented developer from his time. The Ultima series are classics for a very good reason. I've played them. I played them when I was growing up, but very briefly. The thing you've got to remember is that despite how youthful I look, I was actually born in 1987. So I have grown through a lot of the time when he was a well-known, well-named developer. And the fact that you're saying 1993, so that's what, over 30 years he's been after this IP and he's not getting it. So it's going to run into this problem relatively quickly of becoming, well, it's already abandonware because they don't support it. And the more the question is, it's like, if you've got people out there who are
it's technically not abandonware because they sold the license to Broadsword, who's currently maintaining UO.
Yeah,
so they're still receiving kickbacks.
Yeah, Broadsword just released a whole brand new revamp of UO just this past year.
Yeah,
I mean they just did what was it, Legends or Legacy or
so they're still making money off of that IP. Yeah. Even though UO came out in 1998.
Oh God.
Yeah.
You're making me feel old here.
You might be 37, but
you're feeling old. Yeah.
You're the youngest one on the channel currently.
Well,
by 12 years.
Well, in that case, then the thing I would point out is that, like, this is the thing where we start to run into it. It's like when you have a property like Ultima, which has a devoted fan base and a lot of legacy content, you've got to start thinking, well, who is really after this? What market are you selling to? Because this is something that I've talked about, ironically, on your server recently. There is a great nostalgia industry. We are living in the perfect time of nostalgia. We are now. If you look at new things that are coming out, you're finding that a lot of it is referencing older stuff, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but you have to do something with it. Shroud feels like an actual evolution of the Ultimate franchise in a lot of real ways, and I know that that's kind of because he's having.
It was supposed to be the spiritual successor to.
That's right.
All of the Ultima games, including Ultima Online. Okay, and this is where we'll cover Agent Z's post real quick. If you could kick down some of your e-waste servers to Soda and Ravelox, that would be great. We've been waiting for over 2 years on a Unity update and memory installed that doesn't seem to materialize. Got any devs we can borrow as well? Chris has gone MIA for 2 years. Save Soda. And I hope that, Laz, that you click the little like button on that.
Yeah, that's something that I'm very sad to hear about, because I have been sitting there waiting for this Unity update myself since I started playing, and I've been like, because the other thing as well, like I'm not happy with how my character looks, but I also know that like I mean I talked about this. I've been having overheating problems. I have a fairly good computer, and I mean like this was oh god, I'd have to give it. Basically, this is a computer that was basically sort of second, third tier in 2020. All right, so this is not a terrible computer.
Was it your post where you were having problems streaming Soda but no other games? Was that also your post that we covered?
Yeah, that was me as well.
Yeah, we definitely covered that one.
Are you sure you guys just started a fan channel by accident?
Well, you have to remember that our source of Shroud news used to be the developer stand-up corner, and we would talk about what the developers have been working on.
Right.
And we would be a day or two behind what the developers were actually doing, as well as releases to the QA server and all the changes going on. Mm-hmm. Since all of that information has dried up, we are limited to Shroud news frequently being forum posts and things that have gone on.
Yeah, everything that the player base brings up as their topics of interest, which we've got. Again, yours on the overheating with Shroud, the death topic, and just about every other topic we do these days. I mean, is all coming picked right out of the forums, and even then, that's getting tougher and tougher as the player base dwindles a little bit more month by month, year by year, and while they do fix, bugs and little things like this, we create, not as many as we used to every time we fixed it. I'm going to say Andrew Night Owl commented here just a minute ago for Jack. Let me see let me pull that up here.
People have offered to help, and devs don't ask for more help. And Laz, you're up on my stream. Because Destructive Cantor wants a hammer.
The thing I would say, by the way, sorry,
I'm not seeing it.
Destructive Cantor just posted. Yeah,
you mean horrifying cheat? I see horrifying cheat.
So obviously the names are completely different, but it's also time for us to pull the streamer bundle.
Oh, I do.
Morgan got mine. Yeah, it's not a problem.
You've got to remember, I'm actually very British. Scotland is part of Britain, and we're very, very polite. You just don't realise it.
You're not Canadian apologizing for everything.
Oh no, that's just the social anxiety. Don't worry about that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I can't find Andrew's post because I've been chatting. But he had mentioned that he's doing the $27 a month sub, and his wife and children are on the $9 a month subs, but that's not going to pay the bills, that's for sure.
No, it's definitely not, because you have to have tens of thousands of people contributing $9 a month to actually make, or thousands at $9 a month, because remember when they had
Dufresne is getting my streamer bundle. Just
congratulations. When they had a staff of 30, they were the operating burn rate per month was $200,000.
200,000, yeah.
And so if you think, and so when people like say that Richard got rich off of Shroud or that the devs were just taking the money and run, no, they were paying salaries for a bunch of people. The issues related to the project status, I really think boil down to a project management, and this is going to be Star Long, and also Chris Spears issues related to him being the tech director, because it was up to them to create the vision that Richard had. And those are things that the failures there, you have to stop the Disneyfication of everything and realize that the thing that really sold Ultima, and I'll reference Pagan, which was Ultima 5, was the fact that on the cover, they had a pentagram. And it's like, hello, we're going to affront your supposed sensibilities, and talk about cultural issues within the element of a game. Your avatar itself is supposed to be virtuous, but you also have a system of anti-virtues. And Laz can pull out a coaster or a napkin somewhere. We actually has the virtues and anti-virtues listed as far as, hey, this is going to be part of our implementation in Shroud.
Yeah, we did it in a bar on paper towels during Dragon Con back in 2016, and even got them to sign it. You know, the what system was that? The faction system.
Faction system, as far as virtues versus anti-virtues and things like that. But when we look at Shroud, do the virtues actually have any impact on your normal player?
Well, I mean, you've actually covered this before from one of my posts where I was talking about how I felt that the literal Shroud of the Avatar is kind of a bit pants, because although I love the concept and I ran it for ages, and it seems to be a bit borked because I can never seem to increase my courage. I've done the courage club like something in the region of like a couple 100 times, and it doesn't affect my courage stat at all.
No, it has nothing to do with your courage. It's just the way.
That's one where
like
the virtues
scene
themselves are the things that change virtue, truth, love, and courage are so obfuscated that the only one that people really can gamify is the truth, because it's easy to manipulate truth by just going up to an NPC and saying, my name is Bob.
Yeah.
And that dings your truth virtue, but you can't, unless you go talk to a different NPC, you can't raise it. So there are hundreds of NPCs that believe my name is something.
Knight Rider claims that the Courage Club actually does give you an effect. He says he's fixed his courage by grinding the Courage Club, but you're probably doing negative quests to offset it.
I don't do anything. Like, I'm very, very, very. I like being a good character despite being a death mage, which is also something I find very silly, because
I don't know. That's an oxymoron, ain't it?
Yeah, I'm a man of contradictions, so that makes absolute sense to me. But the thing that gets me, and I've talked about this before. In fact, it's on my old Death and Taxes post. There is this problem with the obfuscation of information, because the harder it is to learn how the actual game functions, the more difficult it is to really get new players in. If I tell you, this skill works like this, and you play with it and you don't really see that effect, it's very difficult to get new players to believe you anymore. And
that's the problem with Shroud math in general. And we joke about it so consistently that Shroud math and Shroud logic are so poorly construed that no one understands what's going on with the game as far as how something is actually done. We covered a post last week related to armor and avoidance, where you have inconsistent values,
percentages versus whole numbers.
versus numbers.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And so as a player, you can't understand what is the real change related to this.
Yeah, Tina says we can't tell the rules. Frankly, it's a bug. No.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in here real quick just because there's been this conversation going on in Universe Chat about the post the other day about the guy losing his lots, and people suggesting that maybe, instead of having to log in for your lots to refresh, if you're on the subs or any of the subs, every time you pay a sub, it should refresh your lots automatically. Now, of course, the guy who's claiming that he didn't get any emails, again, we pointed out the fact that the email comes at 45 days. So he got the email a month and a half before he lost those lots, because it's no longer just 14 days that, he wasn't gone a week.
Well,
and
that's because Chris
happened.
Shroud logicked that email when he changed the lot expiration.
Well, he didn't change the email whatsoever. He just it went for 15 days.
But the triggering event is hard coded as the start of, hey, you haven't paid rent in this many days, instead of, hey, you have this many days remaining. So they Shroud logicked it.
I mean, speaking of the sort of Shroud math and Shroud logic, and here's the thing that gets me, because I'm not a stupid person by any stretch of the imagination. I don't get me wrong, I don't have a master's degree in mathematics. I'm not a physicist of any high degree, but I'd like to think that I can at least sort of logic stuff out. And the problem that I find with a lot of Shroud stuff is that it feels like the developers had an idea, and they were like, we're going to do this idea. And we're like, cool, you do that idea. And then they got so wrapped up in themselves that they didn't decide to explain anything. And I've seen developers do this before. This is one of the things that I've personally been, is I've been a rubber duck. If you ever know, do you know about rubber duck coding?
Not familiar with the term myself.
I am familiar with it. In fact, I actually have a rubber duck from a code academy that related to that, but it wasn't because I was participating in it. It was because my brother taught it to kids, and he like, here, have a rubber duck. And
may I explain it for the benefit of your audience?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So the idea behind rubber duck is that you're supposed to explain what your code does to an inanimate object, to talk it through its processes. So, for example, damage calculation. Player does an attack. The attack hits the enemy. If it tries to hit the enemy, if it hits the enemy, then it does this calculation, then it does that calculation, and then a damage result is produced, and then that damage number is shown, and then the health is reduced. So you talk through the steps of it, and whenever you're having data flow problems, it's usually a good idea to talk through the process to see where the problems could come from. So this is kind of like the same thing. I feel like what's happened is the developers were talking to each other, they knew exactly what it was meant to do, and then they didn't write anything down. And part of the thing is that, like, this could have been happening like 10 years ago. Like that's what it feels like. It feels like they had an idea, they sorted stuff out, and then they didn't write down how it actually worked. And that led to its own problems.
I can tell you that's pretty much hitting the nail right on the head. Over the last couple of weeks, I've been, if you don't know, Jack and I know pretty much most of the team from the beginning, and of course, of course, we're friends with the people who are there now. We know Ravlock, Steven, we know Lainey, Justin. We know a lot of the people who are actually, behind the scenes taking care of the day-to-day stuff. And we're planning this upcoming 10th anniversary, and I had to be in touch with them to ask some questions about cloaks and renaming items and what we can do and what we can't do, and just other odds and ends related to this upcoming anniversary event. And while I was talking about the cloaks, one of the things I was asked was, what I want to name it. And my question was, how many characters is my limit? And if we go and look at some of the cloaks, which I did, I went and looked at some of the past cloaks to, get an idea of naming conventions and how that was all done. And some have names that are this long, some have names that are this long. So that's why I had to ask, what's my boundaries? And of course, the answer they came back was just, use a chest or a bag, because whatever the limit in that box is, which is about 30 characters, is the limit. So I went and looked, and I saw, this anniversary cloak that had this really long name. And I says, well, how does that happen? And of course, the answer was that was an asset that was made specifically and was not bound. A lot of these were assets made on the fly for these events, and they were individual assets. And the naming conventions, there is no
Consistency.
documentation. No, there's no documentation.
Oh,
Nobody documented how to do this naming convention, so now they're stuck with just this is what the box allows, and that's what they can do.
I will partially disagree with that. There is no documentation. They had documentation, but when you shifted from Portalarium to Catnip, you have to remember that Chris's ego drives a ton of decisions because he thinks that he's better than everybody else as far as a developer goes. And so it was his way or the highway. And so as they have rotation within the office and the change from Portalarium to Catnip, you end up with him saying, I don't need this stuff.
Oh.
And trashing all the previous data.
Well, see, again, I don't agree, and I got to go with Tina's comment. Tina says, I've not heard of that, but I'm from an old school where you're not allowed to write any code before the documentation is written. That way, when something is different, it's a bug. Whereas, again, I'm not a coder only because me and semicolons don't get along very well on the keyboard. But, the things that I was taught when I was looking at stuff like that and learning computers in school was that you always left something in the remarks to say, this is how this works, this is what this script does. And when I was running my own Ultima Online servers, every script had a descriptor as to what the script did in it. So when you went to go modify the script, you would read the descriptor and it would say, okay, this does this does this. And if you change, 1 to 0, it turns this on, turn this to this, use these modifiers to change this parameter. And it was all usually in the remarks in the script itself, not necessarily just being.
They would utilize something called comments.
Yeah, it was not necessarily documentation, but, And
well, I mean, it is its own form of documentation. Well, I've read documentation. I've read similar. I've actually read comments from. Remember I was mentioning that Hellgate London thing. I used to be involved with a mod team that was working with it. I'll not name names because I'm not associated with them anymore. And every time I mention them, someone gets angry. So I'm just not going to bother. But I do know that in the commentary for some of the code of Hellgate London, they were extremely unhappy about certain things. So developers would have got left in like a half-written sound engine. But they ended up plugging in Fmod instead, and they said, well, this is what we're going to do instead, just in case. Here's what we're working on, and blah, 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 blah. If there's no commentary in the code, or there's very little commentary in the code, that's extremely worrying. And I remember last year when Ravlox said, yeah, we're going to do like a rebalancing or whatever, and I was extremely excited. I mean, in retrospect, I was probably overexcited because just the idea of change is so positive to me, because Shroud... Like I was brought into this game by another person who did stream the game, Necronut, And I know he has his own backlog of issues and what have you, and I know there's some people who are very unhappy with him. But I haven't spoken to him in a while, and he got me involved in the game, so it's his fault. You can all blame him. And he was really into the PvP. I couldn't give anything close to a rat's ass about the PvP. That's not my game. That's not what I do video games for. I like PvE. I'm a big silly player like that, and I like to do. Warframe is like a very big into their PvE as well. So I get that, and I have no negative things to say about PvP if that's your bag. But if you the thing I pointed out, like I've pointed this out several times because people have said to me, "Oh, Death used to be really overpowered in PvP, and that's why it's balanced the way it is." And I'm like, "Great, PvP is a flag. When you have to choose to activate PvP outside of certain PvP areas.
Yeah.
So why isn't it that there aren't specific death buffs in PvP? You could legitimately make it a flag. So, you're in PvP, this death modifier is applied. That would solve a lot of problems straight away just by being able to isolate problems. So death is super overpowered in PvP. Okay, cool. It doesn't have to be, but if it is, cool, whatever. That way you don't negatively affect the PvE players. I have lived through enough mistakes by other developers in other games. They're like, one thing is really broken in this one specific build, and then they nerf everything associated with that build, which has nothing to do with it.
Which is all builds.
Warframe's done this before, and I point to them because
that goes back. That goes back to the Shroud math related to Chris retouching the Shroud math related to almost everything. I think it was 8 times that he would try to balance things.
Well, let's not forget that, flagging PvP here gives you a distinct advantage over the non-PvP player because we're going to give you a bonus to your experience just for flagging PvP and for no other freaking reason whatsoever.
And then you go look at the leaderboard related to PvP kills for the last 30 days.
Our favorite leaderboards. Let's look at the last day. A whole 4 people. Last 30 days.
Yeah, well,
that's
12 kills gets you the top of the leaderboard for 30 days.
I think the thing is that like between like I always have this issue because I don't do like coding development, but I actually do game design for narrative play in Warhammer 40,000 because I am a massive British loser. And also, if there's anything more British than Warhammer 40,000, you get back to me on that one, other than maybe tea, which we stole from the
Listening to
Indians.
Bolt Thrower?
I also have albums of Bolt Thrower in the house. Don't call me out. Anyway, so I don't need this here. I did not come for the slander. But anyway, the important bit is that I've had to deal with game design balance and trying to balance around enjoyment. Because this is the other thing as well. I mean, unfortunately, I seem to stream normally at round about the same time you guys do on a Friday, which I will say for my viewership is very sad. But more importantly, for being able to have these conversations is quite difficult, which is why I'm quite glad I'm on your Discord, by the way. Yes. I'm very, very happy for that. But the important thing is that I often have multi-hour conversations discussing why things are the way they are and trying to understand that. Because this is the thing that gets to me. I'm not, as I said, I'm not stupid, but I'm also not the smartest man in the world. And just by talking out and going, well, this doesn't make sense. Why is it like that? And then talking to people like Gwendolyn Obscuro, who I have to put over Vulcan Jedi. These people have been very instrumental in helping me understand the game. Who else? There's so many people who have explained to me how bits of the game work because I didn't understand. And these are people who have been here for multiple years longer than I have. Another good example is Coswald. I don't know how much you've interacted with him, but without Coswald, I wouldn't understand massive mechanics in the game. And something not just crafting, because when I started playing, I was really interested in playing with Constantine armor, which at the time the wiki said gave lower fizzle chance. And as somebody who rocks all heavy armor, and I mean all heavy armor because I'm a lunatic. In fact, currently I'm rocking all obsidian armor because I hate myself, I think.
You just like the visuals.
I do like the visuals, except I made it all the bone armor because I'm even more of a masochist. As I posted...
isn't bone armor medium?
It is, but I ripped the bone armor apart, took it into yeah. This is the thing. This is one of the things that I was going crazy about recently because for my sins,
I'm
I
a
do this.
firm believer in the bone armor across the board. By the way, just so you
It
know.
looks cool.
That's what Laz wears on his hunting gear, whereas I have just taming gear that hasn't been masterworked yet.
Now I don't care for the actual physical look, so of course I skin it, but all my armor is bone armor.
Well, I do the exact opposite. I skin it to look like bone armor because, again, edgy man. So
you got to be that necro.
Oh, I've got it. It's a vibe. But the thing that gets me is that there seems to be. This happened like a couple of years ago when I was doing the chainsword run. For those of you who are not aware, I collected 100 chainsword skins from the mines of oh god, my brain is gone numb.
The kobold Shrek.
Yeah. I went to
Shrek.
there and I spent an inordinate amount of time grinding for it, and I was like, why on earth is this skin this rare? It's not powerful. The weapon isn't very good. And yet it was this absurdly low drop rate. I would grind for like an hour and I'd be lucky. I'd get like a bunch of them and then I'd break them down and I'd be lucky if I'd get a fraction of those. And I'm like, I understand this is a grindy game, but there's like, what, 5,000 scenes? There's elements of grind that are there that are obfuscating. They're being, in some ways, it's being disrespectful of time. Because grind, sure, I get that. I absolutely understand that. But if you make the grind obsessively low, like let's say I have an item, doesn't matter what it is, an item with a 2% drop chance, that means every time I kill that thing that drops that, 98% of the time it's not giving me the thing that I want. And that starts to really get upsetting, because at that point you're like, okay, how many hours do I need to get it? And because we don't have drop chance tables, you can't really know that before you start grinding. So somebody will be like, oh, I got like 30 of that in like 20 minutes. And then me, Mr. the worst luck in the world, trust me, I could not describe to you how bad my luck is when it comes to video games.
Jack, what's your bane or boon when it comes to what was the drop you were going after, which you gave up on because of that same exact
The Obsidian Destroyers drop the Ring of the Ringmaster at a rate of 1 in 20.
So that's a 5% drop chance, and that really upset you.
Not only that, but in order to craft an epic Ring of the Ringmaster, you need to have 128 of them.
Oh god,
talk about some grind and some Shroud math.
It's less than. But follow that up. In order to maximize that, you need 2 Rings of the Ringmaster, which is 256 drops.
This is the kind of thing where I'm talking about. It's like there's grind and there's that. Like that's just ridiculous, isn't it?
So I'm going to paste a link in Discord so that way you can see it, and Laz can actually do a search for Razorback Destroyer in there. And you can see that I have killed, as far as my tracked stats, 1,808 Razorback Destroyers.
Oh god,
that's
actually terrifying.
And that's a 30,000 hit point mob. So
I see
30,000,
Razorback, but
yeah.
I'm not seeing.
It's the third one. It's the third one.
Destroyer.
Not only that. So I actually have in my inventory 2 legendary Rings of the Ringmaster. So I could craft one as an epic, but then it nullifies the other one. So
yeah.
I have to go kill another 1,800, 2,000 Razorback Destroyers in order to get what I want. So you think about how bad the Shroud math is related to drop rates in general. It all goes back also to AI and copy pasta for adventure scenes as well as mobs. there's no real diversification within the enemy AI between a tier 1 mob and a tier 15 mob. So the only thing they did was they increased its stats, but they didn't increase or change the game mechanics related to that mob.
That's shocking. So I'm gonna talk about that game again, the one that starts with a W.
Yes. Yes.
One of the things that they implemented a few years ago, because people used to complain that the game wasn't hard enough, they implemented a mode called Steel Path, which is horrendously powerful by the standards of the time. But one of the things that they said as to compensate that was that the drop rates were doubled. So basically, essentially the idea is that you doubled the health and you added 100 levels to the creature. Don't worry, it makes sense. And then you doubled its health and armor, which meant that equivalently it was like adding 400 odd levels to the mobs. And it just went, here you go, here's a bucket of them. We're going to pour over them until you die or you stop complaining about difficulty. Now, the thing is, what happens at that point is you start worrying about power creep, which is something else which is, I think, could be a concern in that sort of situation. But I think that I didn't even know that's something that's now really upsetting to me, that I didn't even know that you were having this situation where higher tier mobs don't actually give anything but more experience. They're not giving any more.
And even then, they don't always do that. They're just harder to kill because they just have more hit points.
That's very disheartening, and I think that if there's one thing that they could probably do relatively quickly without massively changing the game, having some sort of scaling between level of mob and drop rates would be a good idea.
Well, now, was that also another one of your topics? Because I got to cut everybody short here because we're at the end of time here. But there was a topic.
Apologize.
No, it's okay. Been a great hour with you. And, you're more than welcome to come back and have these discussions anytime you feel like, especially if you hit on something, say, on a Friday, that you're doing on your live stream and you want to come and discuss it with us on a Monday. You're always welcome, as is everybody else. But
I mean, it gives us something to talk about. And so it is time for us to get out of here as far as our actual streams go. My streamer bundle, I skipped Lomir because he's not going to want a copy of Farm Together, which is a $20 game, which went to Super Dwap Forever, and my giveaway went to I forgot who.
Yeah,
Morkin. What's chat say?
Morkin is getting my streamer bundle.
Oh, Conjurer Dragon. Yeah.
And I would do my game key giveaway, and my game key giveaway is going to go to the lovely Jigoku, who is going to get herself a copy of Sagrada, if I'm pronouncing that right, on Steam. Sagrada. And Sagrada on Steam. For some reason, it's not coming up on Steam. So I have to type it in real quick. Sagrada on Steam is currently, come on, give it to me, $9.99 going out Jigoku. And of course, thank you all. Gotta thank Deus. Deus, is that right? Deuce?
Nope.
Deus, like Deus.
Amadeus. Like Amadeus. Okay. Deus Blackheart. Thank you very much for joining us today. And again, you're welcome back anytime. It's been quite the lively conversation, and I think Jack and I have both enjoyed it immensely, as well as the audience. The audience has been chatting in regular chat and universe chat, commenting about this, and we can use a lot more of that around here. But of course, we'll be back with more tomorrow, right here on NBNN. And again, we invite you all to come in and have these lively conversations as well, every single day right here on NBNN. But till tomorrow, I'm Laz.
I'm Jack.
And I'm Lomir.
And I'm Diz.
There we go. And we are NBNN. Have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you all tomorrow.